I'll call him to bring him a chair.
My kids will bring me a chair. Don't worry. My kids will bring me. I'm right outside my bungalow. It's fine. Okay. Zog the Mishnah.
Do they know you're there?
They'll find out, right?
I'm going to text someone.
All right. Zog the Mishnah, yeah? Makom shenogu limkor behemoth dakalev the kachamim. It's a makom. That's the minig to sell a behemoth dakalev the kachavim. So you sell them. Behemoth daka means sheep and goats. I'm sorry. Makom shenogu limkor behemoth dakalev the kachavim boichne. Makom shenogu shaloi limkor. If it's a makom that the minig is not to sell, then ein boichne. Then you don't sell. All right. Now Tosfos says that's even if he already has his own sheep. Now, what's the issue here? All right? Because again, we're talking about lifnei iver. Yeah. So Mamela, when if they're gonna do isurim with they were afraid that they're gonna do bestiality with the animals, so you're not allowed to sell it to them. So then l'chora, remember we said with lifnei iver that if they have their own animal to do it. So then you should be able to sell them an animal, but we'll see on Amud Aleph why that would not be the case. All right? Okay. But in any place, you're not allowed to sell them large animals, agolim, a calf, or siachim is donkeys, shleiming babies, shleimin ushvurin, whether they're shalem or whether they're broken. So meaning in all places, you're not allowed to sell them large animals. All right? And we're going to get to that reason for that in the Gemara. So large animals never allowed to sell to them. Small animals is dependent on minig, and the large animals you're not allowed to sell to them regardless of whether they are broken, meaning that they can't, whether they could do work for you or not. Rabbi Yehuda matir b'shvura. Rabbi Yehuda holds you're allowed to sell it to them if it's shavar, if it's broken. Ben Beseira matir b'sus, and Ben Beseira, we had this a bunch of blana ago. Ben Beseira holds that you're allowed to sell them a sus. So we'll see in the Gemara why they hold these things. So the Gemara says Lememra the Yisura Leka Menhaga Udeika. You're saying that there's no straight isser to sell small animals to Goyim? It's a tali and minig. Heicha denag isser nag, heicha denag heter nag, that it's tali, and whether you have isser or heter or min. I'll ask you stira ein mamid behema from the kashal of the chum. We know that you're not allowed to leave an animal in a punduk of a guy. But you're not allowed to leave it there by the hotel, because we're afraid that they're gonna go sleep with the animals. Right? So you see that what minig, you're not allowed to leave any animal by it just says behemoth, it doesn't say anything specific. So you're not allowed.
Where are you supposed to put your animal if you're staying at an inn? Take an Uber.
In your room? Maybe in your room.
Take an Uber there.
No, l'chara, does it mean that you're? I don't know. Does it mean that you're there, or mean that you're just leaving them there?
It's ma'amidin, not when you're staying there overnight. You can't store it there.
Meaning using you're using it as a storage.
Right. You want to rent his stall to keep your animal.
You're not allowed to leave the animal in front of the inn where the innkeeper can have relations with it. You could leave it 10 blocks away.
That wasn't the issue. The issue was if you're staying in the inn.
How do you ever stay in a hotel? That's what David's asking.
Well, what's the problem?
Because
how
you're
do I leave my
that
animal there?
You're leaving it in a place where the innkeeper has no access.
Where's that? It's his inn.
You leave it at the parking lot up the block.
Well, maybe who owns the parking lot?
Okay, that's you're not supposed to leave it in a place.
Okay, I think I agree with Gershon.
I think it's ma'amidin. The Gemara says ain't ma'amidin. You can't rent the spot. But if you stay, of course you can leave it there.
What does that mean?
The innkeeper's not going to do anything while you're watching your own animal right next to him. If you're storing, if you're renting a parking space, you pay $50 a month for his for his stall, there's another issue that you're not going to be there. He knows you're just leaving it there.
If I pull by the inn for the night, where do I put the animal?
In the inn, in his parking space.
And we're not worried about Revere?
No, why would he be worried about Revere? He's not going to do something while you're next door.
What do you mean? You're sleeping at 1 o'clock in the morning. He's gonna have relations with animals.
I'm not sleeping at 1 in the morning.
Mustamid is going to be, Mustamid is going to be some sort of mirsis. Then he's going to be scared. No,
right.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever it is. So, but the point is that it doesn't say what type of animal, so that means we're chayshit for this, right? So how can you have a minig on makom? How can you have a minig whether you're allowed to sell them these things or not? So Rav says makom shetiru limkor. So he says that the makom that they will matter you to sell hitiru liyachid. They also allowed you to be alone with the animals. Makom she'asu liyachid asu limkor. And they asked you to sell. Meaning it's all dependent on the same din. Meaning if it's gonna be a community that says that you're allowed to sell the animals, that means for whatever reason they're not chayshid the goyim there. Right? But if it's a place that the taka chayshid the goyim, then yanachanami, you would not be able to be miyachad. Meaning the two go hand in hand. It would be totally in that minig of the makkah. On to
Which way
Aleph.
around does it go? Is the Gemara saying
first? Which came first?
Well, kind of. Is the Gemara saying that you can find a place, a town in which goyim are not chashuv, or you can find a town where they are chashuv? Which one's the chiddush here?
It's not like if they allow you to sell it there, then you're allowed to leave animals there too. That's what goes first, right?
Well, it's all based on the chashad. The chashad comes first.
Yeah, and a chanami. I listen.
Then you can't do either. If there's no chashad, then you can do both.
Correct.
From Gemaras in the past, it sounds like pretty much all goyim are chashuv.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
So makim shenagu limkar means that a whole town or most of the town is not chashuv.
I don't know what the Gedorim are. I don't know what the Gedorim are. Right? Because if you know an individual is chashuv, and even if you're in a town that could sell it, you're not allowed to sell it to him, right?
But that would be him. So, right. If you know he's chashuv,
so I don't know. Yeah. Okay, let's see weiter. Even in a place that they said you're not allowed to be meyachid an animal there, mutter, limkor, you're mutter to sell. My time now, because Ovid Kachavim has pity on his animals to make sure that they don't get sterile. Meaning, it seems like if you would do bestiality, a human to an animal, it will no longer be able to have children. So Mamela, a guy is not chashed to do with his own animal, but he'll do it with somebody else's animal. Right? And Rav also changed his mind to that. That a guy has pity on his behema, so that it should not be what's it called? It should not become infertile because he's sleeping with it. What are you saying?
Is the Gemara making any chiluk between a male and a female animal?
I don't know. I don't know the science of it. I have no idea.
Okay, fine.
Doesn't tell you. The Gemara doesn't say it. The Gemara doesn't say it. You would think it's only a female.
I don't know. I mean, it's Meshik enough anyway, so who knows?
Yeah.
We did have a Gemara in the past that said that he's not chashuv shalei kadarka.
Oh, he's not. Okay, fine.
I think we did. Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah. Okay. So Rob changed his mind to that too. Fine. You're not allowed to sell a behema gasa to them. Now, this behema gasa is not because of bestiality. My timer, because we said you're selling them. We said selling the shash because he's not going to sleep with his own animal. So why should it be also to sell them a large animal? My timer, and granted, you're not chash for revia. I have it be malacha chashina, but we're afraid that he's going to do malacha with your animal, meaning malacha on Shabbos. He's going to do malacha on Shabbos, right? Benevid, kivan, dezavna, benevid, let him do the malacha, kivan, dezavna, kanya. Since he is selling it, since he sold it, he's kind of him. Since when do we have to make sure that your animal doesn't do work once you sell it? Right? It's a,
Is a guy allowed to be shayvis his animal on Shabbos?
I don't know, because he himself has to do malacha.
Yeah.
Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Make you go? You're gonna make a guy make his animals work on Shabbos?
No. I think as far as we're concerned about selling it, it's punkt taker. He's not. He's not
Right.
allowed to be shayvis on Shabbos, and we're not allowed to sell him an animal because he might use it.
Well, it's a havamina. The Gemara knocks out the havamina in a second. It's hard to even understand this havamina. What's the havamina? Right. You say, oh, because you're going to sell the animal to a guy and a guy's going to do work with it on Shabbos. Who cares, right? If you just sold it. Right? Again, Venevet, Kivin the
I mean, I
Zavna
can't when I sell anything else to him and he uses it for Avodah Zarah.
Right, exactly.
I do
no, that's your overlift neiver. That's only because you overlift neiver, not because there's an isser for your. Once you sell an animal, there's no isser for you, for somebody to do Avodah Zarah with your animal.
So maybe there's lifnei iver here.
How can it be lifnei iver? He doesn't have to keep Shabbos.
Oh. It has to be usher for the guy to do it in order for that to be a lifnei iver for me. He's not allowed to do Avodah Zarah. So I have a lifnei iver and selling him something he might use for Avodah Zarah.
Right.
But if he's not mechuyev in keeping Shabbos, then how can I possibly have a lifnei iver of selling him something that he might use on Shabbos? Let him use it on Shabbos. It can't be lifnei iver.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so the Gemara says, now maybe because he's going to borrow it from you, or is because he's going to rent it from you. So the Gemara says, what's wrong with that? Sheila kanya v'agra kanya. We say that borrowing is kaina and renting is kaina. Right? This is such a far-fetched gezerah. It's one of these far-fetched gezerah d'Rabbanan. It's like, what are the chances? Right? Gezerah mishum nisyuni. Where it's a gezerah because you're going to test it from the word nisayon. Because sometimes you might sell it to him close to shkia on Erev Shabbos, right? Mamash right before shkia on Erev Shabbos. And he's going to, and the buyer is going to say to him, to the yid, "Ta nasi and Eli, I want you to give me a test drive. I want to see if this animal does a good work and it carry a good load." And then the animal is going to listen to the voice of the seller, who's a yid, and he's going to walk because of it. Right, and now it's already Friday night, and it's already Shabbos. And he's happy. There's a lot in those few words, and he's happy that it's walking. Right, since he's happy about it, meaning if he was unhappy about it, so then you can maybe get into psikresha, but it seems like he's happy that it walks. The Shabbos, and it's mechamer after the behema on Shabbos, v'mechamer achar behemta b'Shabbos chayav chatos. And somebody who's mechamer after his behema on Shabbos is chayav chatos. You hear this, gezerah?
Why are you doing work so close to Shabbos?
I don't know. I don't know.
He's obviously not doing the daf.
Yeah, and that's true. But it's after the daf. Some people do malacha after the daf, David.
If you're not going to Prague, if you're not making early Shabbos.
Right, correct. I guess he wasn't interested in the bracha that they say that you get, or if you don't do malacha after, whatever it is. Point is what's the chashash? We're gonna ban you from selling large animals to a guy because there's a chance that right before Shabbos you're gonna be trying to sell it. The guy's gonna want to give a test drive. He's gonna load it up. And because of your voice, the animal is going to walk with a load. And now already Shabbos is going to start. And then you're going to be over on Issa Daraisa. So Mamela, because of that, nobody is ever allowed to sell a large animal to a guy. It's wild.
I gotta say, if I was smarter, I would probably gotta be another case that was just as wild. Where we put Xera.
Yes, there
In all
are
the daf, there's
gezeras.
got to be a case. This is not the most wildest case, but I hear what you're saying that it's wild. But there's got to be we must have had in the daf a crazy
Well,
one.
whatever happened with last slide is about Lefnei?
Yeah. What's the flavor here? The chashash is on the yid.
Yeah, what's the you doing wrong? He has to be a balabas and what the guy's gonna do with it.
No, we're afraid that he's gonna do the malacha.
The yid's gonna do the malacha.
Yeah, the yid is gonna do the malacha. The yid, we're afraid that the yid's animal is going to do malacha in order to show the guy. All right. But anyway, it's a wild gezerah. Like the says, for every reason that the Chachamim give you, they had many, many other reasons. Right? I wonder if bestiality review plays a part in this too. I don't know. Okay, so then Maskavla of Shisha Breder Ravidi. What?
Doesn't the going say by Chalab Akum that where the Gemara handles what the reason is and it throws out a whole bunch of reasons, then the reason it's left with is the only reason.
It says, yeah. I think
reason
it says it by
what?
Gilui.
The reason what?
Usually we say that when the Chazal give a Gzeira, there's multiple reasons. And they just happen to give one. But where the Gemara goes and handles, is this the reason? No. Is this the reason? No. Is this the reason? No. And then it leaves one reason, then that is the only reason, because you see the Gemara tries to find the reason. It couldn't.
I thought he says it by Gilui. He says it by Gilui. Right? Anyways, okay, so Maskavla little
The
Shisha.
Aruch HaShulchan says it in the Agdama to one of the Chalakim by Chol Yisrael.
Well, he doesn't. Yeah, yeah, right. That's your favorite thing. Anyway, so now the Gemara goes back because the Gemara's assumption was that lending is kinda and renting is kinda. So now the Gemara goes back on that. Maskaler of Shisha Breder of Idi, Schiras Mikanya. You were taking as an assumption, as a given, that renting is kinda. Is it true? Even place where we said that you're allowed to rent a house to a guy. You're not allowed to lend them. You're not allowed to rent them a house to live in. I mean, you could do it for business or storage, but not to live. Why? Because you're going to bring Avodah Zarah into it, right? And if you hold that renting is a total kinyan, when he brings it up to his own house. He's bringing it to his own house. If you hold you're renting him a house, he's bringing Avodah Zarah into his own house, right? So Elamai must be that Schiras is not kind. When it says Shani Avodas Kacham, the Chayira Avodas Kacham is much more strict. Meaning, yes, really a rental is a rental, but Avodah Zarah is different. Because we know the pasuk is that you should not bring a te'eva into your house, right? And since you shouldn't bring a te'eva into your house, it's still your house, even though it's rented out. But it's lemaisa, it's still considered your house. So it's more chum.
Naftali,
Yeah.
do you have any of your super Santa Arena guys or Indians? You have Indian supers?
I have tenants that are Santa. All the voodoo stuff, right?
Yes, that's Avodah Zarah.
Right.
Yeah. I have tenants Santa. What's it called? Yes. All the voodoo. Yes.
Your bosses don't care about it? It's okay. They're rival if neighbor.
They don't even know. I'm the one that has to deal with it.
Rabbaran, they're
But you
they're
own
only
it.
going to care if the rent is late.
Right.
It's not.
Then Naftali's involved. That's it.
It might be worse than livni. I don't know if it's worse than livni, but it's like savi teva el besecha.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So yeah.
What does that mean?
What's the heter?
Could you translate that one for some people that don't?
We just had it for we just read the pasuk for like
You
savi
have the
teva el
article, so look
besecha.
at the English.
I'm following on the Hebrew part. Okay.
Very good. But like
Okay.
do not bring an abomination. Is that the way they teach it? I'm sure that's the way it's
Okay.
taught.
Probably, sure.
Yeah.
Whenever you could use that word, you use it.
Yeah,
That's
correct.
For
Yes,
us,
they use that word.
I'll take a step enough. I'll back you up here. For us CF graduates, can you explain abomination?
Oh,
No,
very
I
good.
got okay.
Very good. That's two times ago's presidents.
Oh, very
Aaron.
good. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so don't bring something disgust. I would translate as more disgusting into your house. Meaning, even though you have a
It's
house,
not in your
even
house
though
if you
it
rent in
is,
it. How?
still you're the owner of the house. That's the chumrah of
What-
Avodah Zarah. You don't want Avodah Zarah anywhere near your house.
But it's not your house.
Is
You
that-
own a building. It's not your house.
It's still
Naftali, that's why I asked you about supers, not regular tenants. The super, the apartment is part of his salary. Your mom is giving him the Avodah Zarah.
Uh-huh.
I didn't look up today. What's the heter that we don't do this? I think it's because we don't assume that they're Avodah Zarah.
But they
think.
are. Indians are over the Avodah Zarah.
Yeah, but it could be, we say what's it called? What was the lashon?
No,
the
it's
other
not
day?
Minig Abasenu by them. There's a billion of them in the world.
Let's burn our
Sheikhlach.
Sheikhlach.
What's
Let's
so
burn
hard
our
to hear?
Sheikhlach now.
They're not Christians who celebrate Super Bowl Sunday. They're Indians who celebrate Avodah Zarah.
The cricket championship.
I saw something today, Punk, that there's a difference. By Yidden, Shituf is considered Avodah Zarah. By Goyim, Shituf is not considered Avodah Zarah. So if their religion, that's a Shituf. In other words, they hold there's one big God and there's Shutfus. For them, not Avodah Zarah. So if that's not Avodah Zarah, there won't be a Lifnei Yiveh. Even though for me it would be Avodah Zarah.
I hear. Okay, I'm not.
Well,
I don't know.
but
I don't know
how?
if that's-
Let's go. Can we go back to this? Houses. If someone owns a building, and even the super, and he has a room in the basement, and he gets it for free. How's that your house? How's that beisecha?
Because you own
Because-
it.
It's his.
You own it.
It's your house that's rented out. Mamela, you have some bilus over it, right? Naftali, you do have some bilus over it, right? Meaning the way it's understood is that there's no. Where do you ever see that there's an issue to bring something into your house, other than the Hasidim who say you're not allowed to bring a TV into your house? But other than that, right? Where do you ever see that? Well, because they say it's Avodah Zarah, maybe.
Same
Right,
pasuk.
right,
Yeah.
right. No, but it doesn't say anywhere. It doesn't say anywhere you're not allowed to bring chametz into your house. Right? It doesn't say anywhere that you're not allowed to bring cholav stam into your house.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, chametz it does say. Sorry,
Right, okay.
forget that. Chametz you're not allowed to have in your house, right? I mean, if it's somebody else's, a cleaning lady, it belongs to them. It's a whole. What are you saying?
Isn't TV like Toyeva? It sounds the same thing, no?
Right, that's where they get it from.
But when you rent, but it's not when you rent it, it's not yours anymore. You have no control. You have no right to enter there without their permission.
That's the Gemara's kasha, and the Gemara answered, even though you have no control, since the pasuk says it's more chamor. That even though while he's renting it, he owns it, he still can't do it if he's going to bring Avodah Zarah in.
How do you stop that?
Why is
rent it
everybody
to
beating up Reb Naftali?
No, no one's beating me up. I'm asking because I'm in the business a little bit.
Don't rent it.
Nice,
Don't have it in
okay,
super.
You have no control.
You do.
It don't make a
rent
difference.
it to him. The Gemara says you're not allowed to rent it to a guy if he's going to bring Avodah Zarah into
But
it.
you don't know what he's going to do.
Then you may have a suffix. But if you know that he's an Avodah Zarah, you can't rent it to him.
And if you buy a building that the super's there already, and he's
Kick
that
him
type
out.
of super, you can't. He's not in New York, okay? You can't.
Don't buy the building.
Hey, let me ask you,
Right,
if he's
so you
an
can't buy that building.
Ishka guy, you allowed to do that?
If he's
Rent
a
an
what?
apartment to a couple, a Mishkav Zucha guy.
I have those also.
Okay, well, so we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that soon. All right, let's go. Let's see a little vibe. But Naftali, it's just basically, it's like because of the pasuk, some mamela, even though rationally correct, because it says like some mamela, it applies even if it's just. That's what the Gemara is saying.
Never asked the Shaila before.
What?
It's interesting that he never asked. He never thought about this before.
Well, how do you know? Yeah.
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 Great.
Chanavi. Okay, next Shiloh. So Maskal Yitzchak Breda Rab Masharshi is Chiras Mikanyan is renting Kaina. But Tanan Yisrael Shasachar Para Mikayan. So you have a Yisrael that rents a para from a Kayan. So we know that a Kayan can give his truma to his animals. Right? But let's say Yisrael rents a para from a Kayan. So Yachilana Kashine Truma, you're allowed to give it the junk of the truma. Right? Because meaning the junk food you're allowed to give. I'm sorry, I said you're allowed to feed the animals. You're only allowed to feed the animals real food. Not animal food. Real food you can't. But bottom line is this Yisrael is allowed to give it to the animal because the animal belongs to the Kohen. Now what's a pshat? Because the Kohen himself, meaning how can he isn't a Yisrael benefiting from Truma? The answer is Pashit. He can give the Truma to whoever he wants. He can give it to any Kohen he wants. Mamela, since he gives it, he would say, I'm going to give you this animal food to the Kohen who actually owns this animal. Right? Okay, so Yechlino Kesher Truma. The Kohen Shesach a part of Yisrael, what about the opposite? A Kohen that rents a part from Yisrael, Afapisha Mezainis, even though his Mezainis is on you, Lo Yechlino Kashina Truma, he cannot feed it Kashina Truma. Bisagatai to Schiras Kanya, and if you say that Schiras is Kaina, Amai Lo Yechlino, why can't they feed he rented the Yisrael animal. He rented the animal, it belongs to him. Paradi day, it's his para. So we hear from this, Schiras is not Kaina. Fine. So and that's the Gemara saying that's become with Schiras is Taka, not Kaina. Okay, but Hasha Damitz. So now that we're saying that Schiras is not Kanya, now that we have additional reasons why you're not allowed to sell Behem Gasil Goy. Xerim Shum Schiras. One is because you might rent it to him and then he's going to use your animal on Shabbos. Uberim Mishum Shela, or he's going to borrow it and he's not allowed to use it on Shabbos. Uberim Mishum Nisyuni, and also because you might test it. That was the original Xera. You might test it going into Shabbos. Right? Okay. Next. Now we got this okay, before that. Rav Ada Shara Lizvune. So Rav Ada had a Eitzah. Rav Ada Shara Lizvune Chamra Ayada de Safsira. Ada allows you to sell he himself paskin that you're allowed to sell a chamor through a yada on the hand of Safsira of a, what do you call a Safsira? A broker. Right? There's a lumdus. We're saying you're allowed to sell an animal to a guy. Those three reasons. You're saying, but if you do it through a broker, allowed to. If it's for testing, he doesn't know the broker's voice. We're afraid that he's going to know the seller's voice and he's going to carry the load. Right? But that's not an issue here. Because he doesn't know the voice, he's not gonna move because of that voice, right? He doesn't know the voice that he's gonna walk because of it. And if it's because of possibly borrowing and renting, even the who, since it's not his, he was hired to sell it. He wasn't hired to rent it. He can't lend it and he can't rent it. He's only hired to sell. Right? You go hire a real estate broker to sell your house, and he comes back and he rents your house. He said, "What are you doing? I wasn't looking at renting the house." And he also is not going to be Magala any sort of. He doesn't want the guy to see any mum, so he's going to make it his most. He's going to try his hardest to make sure that it does not get tested. He wants to make the sale, right? But I don't understand because a seller also doesn't want anybody to see the thing. Either way, what he's saying is that when you do it through a broker, then it's okay. Fine. Now we're going to do a long sugi. It's going to take us the whole Amid base. He sold a cow to a guy. Now that we just learned a Mishnah, you're not allowed to sell a cow to a guy. Right? So how was he able to do it? So let's first see the teretz. Why'd you do that for? Maybe he took it to shecht it. Maybe he took it to shecht it. Now that's a big, chiddush. Right? Yeah. Now, what do you mean? He took it to shecht it? Maybe he took it to shecht it. Now that's a big chiddush. 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 Now, Meaning he's saying that as long as there's a chance that he's going to use it just to shecht it, so then what's the issue that comes out of it? We're not going to be worried about any sort of chil Shabbos, right? Because he's taking it to shecht it. Okay, so why about the Mishnah? The Mishnah maybe also took it to shecht it. So that the Gemara doesn't discuss, but this long Tosfos discussing it, Rashi also discusses it. Right, so Rashi says that in the Mishnah is talking about a Tamea, and that's that they don't use behemoth tameas to eat, so there was no chashav gonna shecht it, right? Or it was talking about a tahira, and the guy himself, and that's a big chiddush. The bottom line in the Rashi says, or we're talking just about a tahor animal, and the guy told him he's keeping it to use, right? But if he didn't, then enochanami, according to Rav Huna, you don't have to worry about it, right? You hear the chiddush because it's important to understand. It's not hard to understand. Basically, our whole issue is that you might, if you're going to sell the animal to the guy, let's just call it under the umbrella of there's going to end up being chil Shabbos, kid's animal, right? So, but if he's going to shecht it, then there's no concern for chil Shabbos. So what Rav Huna was saying, you're allowed to sell this guy the animal because perhaps he's going to shecht it. Right. So let's go on to Beis now. We're not tamer the Who says what?
That's even a bigger chiddush. Usually we don't eat females at all. And this was a para. We eat steer. They're all male animals. What we eat, all the meat we eat comes from males. And this was a female, and nevertheless, he still had a chatzi thing that maybe he'll shecht it.
Right.
The cows kept for milk. That's more important than the meat.
Okay, but that I had taka. That would yeah. I don't know. Does that play a role? Maybe. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a tiny tzad that he's going to shecht it.
And a right? No, it's very good. Okay, so says me not tell me the meaning of who says now the top right says who says that you would say on Lifnei Iver, meaning if you can be Tyler the Mechira, then you're going to say that there's nothing going wrong here. And now Rashi says, bring Iver to this. What we're saying is if you're going to allow assumptions, that's the way the word is, right? If you're going to allow assumptions, right? So how do you know that such a concept exists? I mean, you could be making on a lot of things. Right? Meaning, let's say you're giving something to a guy, and we're saying, oh, you can't give an animal because we're afraid he's going to sleep with it. Okay, but he's going to sleep with it. Right? So here, Rav Huna is saying a chiddush that he's assuming that the guy is going to buy it to shecht it. What gives you the right to assume that? So what it says, it's not, because we learned it, no. This is talking about Shemitah, right? Are you allowed to sell a plowing cow to a plowing ox? To somebody who's chashed that he's going to be over and use it in Shemitah, right? You have your irreligious neighbor. Are you allowed to sell him the ox? It's not. You're not allowed to sell. A person's not allowed to sell a cow that plows on Shemitah to somebody. Because why? We're afraid. Why is he buying a plowing cow during Shemitah? Elamai must be because he wants to plow, which is not allowed to be doing in Shemitah. Says, no, how do you know? Maybe he's gonna shecht it. So you see that as long as you can come up with some sort of assumption of what you do with it, then it's allowed. Okay, so then Rabbah says, "Amar Rabbah or Rabbah midami." The cases are not the same. Awesome. Over there, ain't other mitzvah to make sure the animal is resting on Shemitah. Shemitah is a din in the ground. If somebody takes your animal and works with it, okay, what's that have to do with you? Here, a person is mitzvah on Shvisas behemtoi on Shabbos, right? So, memela, it's more of selling this animal to this guy, assuming that the guy is going to shecht it, right? So, but why But that here, we're assuming the guy's going to shechter, but if he doesn't, you're going to be over an isser on yourself. Now, it's hard to understand exactly what this kasha is because this kasha is, it seems like we're mixing subjects, right? Meaning, are we talking about either? Are we talking about your animals here? What are we talking about? Okay, so it's a little confusing, but the point is, you see from here that there's a difference between shvisas behemtai and not. Basically what you're trying to say is that when a person is commanded, he has the isser, so then it's more usher to make assumptions. So Abaye says, is that true? If the person has an isser to make assumptions, he can't make assumptions. But a field, a person is commanded on Shisa today on Shvius Tanan, Bishama Yarim, Bishama says, Lo Yimkar Adam Sada near Bishvius. A person cannot sell a plowed field on Shemitah. Not because obviously, why is it buying a plowed field on Shemitah? Must be he wants to plow in it, which case you have a lifneiva. Because he could let it sit empty. Maybe he just wants to make a good investment. Maybe the fields are cheap during Shemitah. Right? So, but there's a tzad to say that he's not going to do it. So you see, beferish, that even a person in himself has an issur to make sure the field doesn't get used. We're not worried about this as long as we could say that there's a possibility. Okay, so the maskal Rashi is the and if a person's not mitzvah, that's mutter. Means it was mashma from Rav that if a person's not mitzvah in something, then it's mutter for him to sell things on the chance that on the assumption that something, I don't know if it's an assumption, on the chance that he may not be able to. It's very kalim. The ain't other mitzvah shvisas kalim b'shviyas kalim, that a person is not mitzvah on shvisas kalim and shviyas, right? So, I mean, you're allowed to make sure that you're allowed to use your hoe to smash food, right? So she was the kalim, she was with Tanan. Elu and kalim, and what are the kalim that a person's not allowed to sell during shmita? And anything that's any other kalim from it, oil, the yoke, mizra, and a shovel, a decker, and a hoe. Meaning these are all utensils that are used for plowing, right? So if they're used for plowing or being used for fields, you're not allowed to sell it. Now, why not? Why are you not allowed to sell it? Maybe the guy's not going to use it for the field. And so basically, we have a big challenge over here. When can we assume things might be used for heter and when not? So Ravashi says, here's the rule. Anytime you have a situation where you could say that perhaps he's not going to do it be'isser, then you could be toilet. Even though he's mitzvah to make sure that it's used. Ultimately, and where you can't be toilet, right? Like tools, you cannot be toilet avagav the enim mitzvah, no, you're not mitzvah. So basically, Ravashi is seemingly saying a pashat din. Basically, what he's saying is if you can fear, if even you can with some sort of realistically think in your head that guy could possibly do something better with it, then it's fine. If you can't, then you can't. So a field, there's a tzad, he's going to leave it. He's going to leave it empty when he's not going to plow it. But what's a guy buying plowing tools and shovels during Shemitah for? If not for him using it to work the ground. Now I don't understand. So I mean, again, it just can get confusing. But what's the difference between using utensils? Right? Maybe buying them now because they're cheap. Right? Why isn't that why can't that be a fair assumption? But for some reason, the Gemara is saying that kalim not and fields you can sell. Okay, fine. Rabba Zavin Ahu Chamali Yisrael Achashid Limka Loiva Kavavim. Rabba sold a chamor to a Yisrael, who we were chayshid is going to go sell it to a guy. Right? Meaning he sold it to a yid who you think is not going to keep the Allah. Amalei Abaye, my time over Marhofi. Abaye said to Rabba, why'd you do this for? Amalei, I know the Yisrael's vini. He said, I sold it to a Yid, not to a guy. So Amalei Abaye told him back, well, but he's going to go flip it to a guy. We know he doesn't care about this halacha. Right? So he says, Rabba answered him back. He's only going to sell it to a guy. He's not going to sell it to a Yid. How do you know he's not going to sell it to a Yid? We don't know. So since we don't know, therefore it's mutter. Right? So try to say that's the Pasha Dakash. If you remember before, Rabba, depending on which Girsa you have, it's either Rabba or Ra. Right? But if you learn that it was Rabba himself, how can you make assumptions? So he said, so Taisa says he changed his mind after Ravashi. After Ravashi, he changed his mind. But the bottom line is Rabba, you could assume that this guy, that this Yid who doesn't keep the halacha, you don't know whether he's going to resell it to a guy. Maybe he's going to resell it to a Yid. So therefore, he sold him the animal. So Esvei,
why is that making? Why is Rabba making the assumption? Abai is making the assumption.
No, Abai isn't why he did it.
Right, because you can't make assumptions. He may sell it to a guy, he may sell it to a Yid. So once you may sell it to a Yid, you can't make assumptions.
That is an assumption. We're assuming
since you don't know,
this guy's chassid that'll sell it to a guy.
This guy's chassid, he may sell to a guy. Rob is saying, you can't make an assumption. He also may sell to a Yid.
No, it's the other way around. I'll tell you, the problem with making assumptions is laheter, not laesir. If he might sell it to a guy, then you can't sell it to him. That's lifnei iver, because he's going to sell it to a guy. To say
You're making
now,
an assumption by saying
no, it's not an assumption. We know he sells to guy. It's not an assumption that he'll sell to a guy. It's an assumption to get out of lifnei iver. Oh, he might sell it to a Yid. That's the assumption that we're worried about. The other way around, later.
Okay.
Got it, Naftali?
Yeah, I guess
Meaning,
so.
you know, it's Taka, you think about it. How do you know this guy's he's dafka going to sell it to a guy? Maybe he's going to sell it. He doesn't care. You think he's dafka selling to a guy? Maybe he'll sell it to a Yid. You can hear where Rab's coming from. Right? So now, but now the Gemara, this is a long kasha. It takes us almost to the bottom of it. So Esvei, we get a lot of parenthetical halachas. So Esvei, Malka Shanoga Limka Behemoth Dakal Kusim. If it's a makam that the minig is to sell a behemoth Dakal Kusim, Meichrin, to Kusim. Till now we said goyim, we're saying Kusim. Meichrin, Shaloi Luka, not to sell Kusim is a check whether they were Gary Emes or not. Sorry, again. Esvei, Malka Shanoga Limka Behemoth Dakal Kusim, Meichrin. You sell Shaloi. My timer. What's the reason? If you say it's because it's Chashid on Revia, we're afraid that he's going to do bestiality. Are the Kusim Chashid Latanya? Now let him leave an animal in a hotel of Goya, right? So the kavas etzel the kavas. You can't put males by males, females by females. All right. The ain't sort of lemon the kavas etzel the charim, and you can't, it goes without saying, you can't put a female by a male because charim etzel the kavas, and males by females. Yeah, meaning we're chayshid males, females in the whole deal. Right? So that's the first part. And not only that, you're not allowed to give an animal over to their shepherds for the same reason. And you're not allowed to be this means because we're afraid you're going to kill you. And you're not allowed to give them a child either, lalam de sefer, lalam de umnus, to teach them a sefer and to teach them umnus. But kusim you're allowed to. The charam etzel on the kavis, the kavis etzel the charam, bein tzal mechlemers, the charam etzel the charam, and the kavis etzel the kavis. You can give them behemoths too. You be miyachad with them. So you see that a kusi is not choshed on this, even though we don't know whether they're getting or not, but they're not choshed on it. Like chashidi. So you see that a kusi is not choshed to do all these things. Right? But the first price that said it's still Tully and Minig. Right? Fine. You see that you can still asa to sell behemoths, that there is a chance that he's meaning why should it be asa then? Right? Because it must be maybe is gonna go sell it to an Avodah Zarah. Right? Meaning, why would it be usher if they're not choshed on Revia? So what would be the tzadisr? So tzadisr must be that he's going to resell it. That's one. And then the price, ain't them like Zion, but like Zion, you're not allowed to sell goyim. You're not allowed to sell them weapons and not play Zion accessories to weapons. Not only that, you're not allowed to sharpen their kalim. Sell them. A stadon is the stadon and koloran, the things they lock the chains. Well, that's the next one. Like kvalim, these are all things that they chain the prisoners up with. And that applies to both an oivik and a kusi. My time. Huh? What's the reason? So if you say that, meaning what? Why are going? We know why kusim. If you say that the chashish damim we just in the previous price. So you're allowed to be miyachad with kusim. Must be because the kusim are selling it to goyim. Right, so you see, not like what Rabbah did. Rabbah sold to a yid, assuming maybe he's going to sell it to a, even though he's chashad on selling it to a government, maybe he's going to sell it to a yid. So maybe the kusi the same thing. You don't know if the kusi is going to dafka sell it to a guy. Maybe he'll sell it to a yid too. Kusi like a tshuva. What if you're going to say a kusi doesn't do tshuva? Right, meaning he doesn't even care about the chachamim at all. So Yisrael of a tshuva, Yisrael does do tshuva, meaning even if Yisrael normally would be over on these Yisurim, but at the end of the day, he wants to do well. So if he finds the yid to sell it to, so he's going to try and do the right thing. But a kusi will never do that. They need you for a minute. Yes. I don't know what they have, but they need you, so you got to go. You don't have a choice. Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a very surprise. It's the same way. It's also to sell to a guy. It's also to sell to Yisrael, who's chashud to sell to a guy. So basically, they slugged up Rabbah and what he did. So Ra'et Basrei Tlosa Party. So Rabbah ran after the guy who he sold it to 3 parsois, right? To try and buy it back. It's interesting. Rashi says to buy it back. He wasn't. Once he sold it, right? The sale is a sale. And some say he didn't. It wasn't 3 parsa. It was 1 parsa, but it was in sand. Below Adjuche, but he wasn't able to find him. He couldn't catch him. So it's very interesting. So Rabbah did something. Abaya totally slugged him up. He tried to back out. And he tried to reverse it, and he couldn't. Okay, let's see a little bit more.
Would that have to reverse it? How does that work? Even if he buys it back, the Isser was selling it. Is someone over lifnei iver after he sold it all the time until he sells it to a guy? He's over another lifnei iver.
I don't know. I was wondering how that works. And was he? Does that reverse the Isser? He was over. Lamaisi was over. Is that tshuva?
I mean, unless the chalois of lifnei iver is only when he actually does the Isser with it. Then there's a lifnei iver. But until that point, there's no lifnei iver.
I hear. I don't know. I wasn't sure. How this goes. Okay, let's see a little bit. The same way you're not allowed to sell. You're not allowed to sell weapons to a guy. You're not allowed to sell it to armed robbers that are yidden. So it says, "Hey, either chashid the katel. If he's chashid that they may kill, pshita it's chashid. I know every that's no different than a guy. Murder is no different than a guy. Either like katel, and if they don't kill, am I loy? So why not? The Gemara says, "Loy the like katel." really he didn't kill. The shmuta, it's talking about he's a armed robber, but they're sneaky. Zimnin da'avid latzuli nafshi. Sometimes he will kill, meaning really he's not going to kill, but in order to save his skin, he might kill. So therefore, that was the chiddush that you're not allowed to sell it to. Okay, let's do a little bit more. Torah Abana. Ain't Michael and Trisin, you're not allowed to sell a tris. A tris is a shield to a guy. And some say you are allowed to sell a tris. Okay, so what's it like? It's my time. If you're going to say it's because they're just using it for protection, right? A shield only protects, right? So then, right? Then you shouldn't sell them wheat and barley either. Meaning you don't want, no, I'm sorry, I said it's only protection. Meaning if it's because you don't want to, why should you help a guy protect himself? Saying you shouldn't sell them wheat and barley either, because that's also going to help them. Right? So Amar Rav, so Rav said on Tamarav, if you can get away without doing business with Goyim, without it costing you, then Hanami, you should do it. But unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. Ikadari, another pshat, Trisin Hainu time of Deloy. The reason why you can't sell them shields, because when they're gonna run out of other ammunition, then they're gonna kill with the shield. Somehow they'll use the shield to kill.
Yeah, for
Fine.
sure.
The Yesharim says you're allowed to sell. Once they lose all their tools, then they're just gonna run away. Is like the Yesharim. We'll just go to the two dots. You're not allowed to sell them big pieces of metal. My time, because what they're going to do is they're going to smooth it out, klizayin, and they're going to make a klizayin into it. Meaning, like the guy that shot that executive in Manhattan, he's supposedly gone, right? So the guy that did that guy, he 3D printed his gun. That's what they said. Anyway, so that's what they're going to do with this chunk of metal. They'll make it into a gun. So where it says, okay, if you look so that's the case, then don't even sell hose or shovels or anything to Goyim. Amarav Zid, but Parzala Hindua. No, it's talking about a special type of Hindu iron, which they only sell for making weapons. Okay, but in the Kamas Manina, so how come nowadays we do sell it? Amaravashi leparsoi, we sell it to the Persians, the Mignui Lavan, because they defend the Yidden. There's Gemara's about it. I forgot where about that the Persians got along with the Yidden. So Memela, that's why we sell it nowadays. So I guess nowadays that officially United States protects us, right? So Memela, we would be allowed to sell to them, right? Anyways, okay, we'll stop over there.